Good morning, everyone. This is Jeff with the Cyber Pro podcast, where industry leaders share their insights about cybersecurity. Hackers never sleep, so why should we? Let's dive in. Question number one. Andy, good morning.
Good morning, Jeff.
In a few sentences, please tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm Andy Ellis. I'm the former Chief Security Officer for Akamai Technologies. I do a portfolio of things right now. So I'm advising a couple of cybersecurity startups as well as a venture fund. And I'm also starting my own business, doing leadership training and writing a book.
Wonderful. I'm going to get back to writing the book in a second. With your previous experience and your experience as a whole, what would you say is the best thing about being in cybersecurity during these crazy times, really?
So I think the best thing is when you've made a change in the world and you see that bear fruit. Sometimes it's just an incident that becomes not as bad as it would have because there was a control in place that you'd put there, or that you enabled somebody to do a thing they wouldn't have been able to do without the safety that you helped give them. That's really the best thing for me, is when we can make the world better.
Yeah, well put, very well put. We hear from other professionals like yourself that cybersecurity has been a major contributor to most things that are done in the world today, but only getting bigger as we speak. When you hear that, what does that mean to you?
So security has always been about helping other people make wiser risk choices. And our job is to sometimes give them better options by reducing risk in an area that they really want to go. Sometimes it's to solve problems in ways that are scalable. Akamai, when I started 20 years ago, was just a CDN, content delivery network. And through the security solutions and services that I built and brought to market, we grew that security business to over $1 billion in dedicated cybersecurity revenue. That's making a difference, not just for our company, but for many other companies as well.
Yes, and only getting bigger. So on that, what insights about security leadership would you like to share with our community?
So I think the biggest insight is to recognize that there's no such thing as perfect security. Our job is not to eliminate risk. It's to help people make better risk choices. And so always find good work that they can do and are willing to do. Because there's many things we could demand that folks do. But if you're always demanding that they do things, then they're not going to want to interact with you. And they're going to see you really as an enemy to them. And you really want to be seen as a sidekick. Security is never the hero in the story. We're the sidekick to somebody else's heroism. And so that's really our goal, is to find other people and enable them to do better than they would have without us. If we stop them from doing anything, then we really aren't doing our jobs.
Yeah, yeah. When you talk about enablement, I'm going to go off script for a second. When you talk about enablement, that's a big ball to put your hands around, because cybersecurity can take on so many different facets, and every deployment is essentially a new deal, a different deal. So how do you empower this enablement when there really is no roadmap?
So sometimes it's about creating your own roadmap and your own vision. Take single sign-on as an example. When we started doing single sign-on 15 years ago, everybody said, why are you making us do this work on every single website to enable this other site to log in? And when we were done, everybody was like, wow, you had this vision and it was great. And then it meant that when we turned to two-factor authentication, we only had to change it in one place, not across thousands of websites. And that was really the massive benefit we got by looking ahead and making our own roadmap. Nobody had really told us how to do this. And over time, we turned on X509 certificates plus push-based authentication and turned off passwords. Right? That's no roadmap for getting rid of passwords. We had to forge one by thinking about what the first principles were, which was to make people safer than they would have been otherwise, but really to get out of the way of the business. And passwords suck. Making people remember passwords, Like they hate us every time they type in a password. So if you can get rid of passwords, you're their friend.
Yeah. I think my takeaway is monumental leaps and incremental steps.
Yes, it's a great way to put it.
Well, I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of folks who listen to our podcast and watch our podcast that may want to learn a little bit more about you, kind of find out a little bit more about what you've been doing, what you're going to be doing on your next roadmap. If they wanted to do so, please share with us the best way for them to get in contact with you.
Absolutely. So they can find me usually on Twitter or LinkedIn. CSO Andy is my handle. My personal website is www.csoandy.com.
Wonderful. Thank you. And our final question for the day, something fun. Let's talk about your favorite piece of retro technology that puts a smile on your face.
So this one was really hard to think about because there's such a universe of technology, but I'm actually going to go with the corkscrew. I'm a huge wine aficionado, and I'm a big fan of what's often known as the waiter's corkscrew, which is a simple lever and screw that can open virtually any bottle of wine as long as the cork hasn't aged and degraded too much. So what I love about it is just the clean, simple mechanics of it. And if you get a good one, either made of, an ivory or, sorry, not an actual ivory, but a synthetic ivory or rosewood, they feel so good and loving in your hands. So that's what
Wonderful.
My favorite one.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for those insights. We appreciate your time today, Andy. For those of you who have watched our podcast for a while now, or if you're brand new, we post about 3 or 4 different podcasts a week with industry veterans that share their perspective on cybersecurity. We look forward to seeing you again. Thank you again, Andy, for your time, and be well.
Thanks, Jeff.